UN Security Council met on Tuesday to discuss the latest situation in Yemen. The council was told by the new envoy appointed to broker peace in the country that an escalation of violence could happen anytime soon.
Movements of forces in Yemen are on the increase, and that the prospect of intensive military operations in Al-Hodeidah, long heralded, may soon be forthcoming. Our concern is simple, that any of these developments would at a single stroke take peace off the table. I'm convinced there's a real danger of this. We all need urgently and creatively to find ways to diminish the chances of these game-changing events upsetting and derailing the very real hopes of the great majority of Yemenis.
Martin Griffiths also said the current course of developments could kill any prospect of peace in Yemen unless an emergency measure is taken to bring warring parties to the negotiating table. He said that he was working on a plan to relaunch talks within the next 2 months, emphasizing that he still believed in prospects for peace.
These people don't have a real grasp of the situation. They want to promote talks between the various factions in Yemen and with Saudi Arabia, and the roadmap is essentially a roadmap to nowhere. What you do is you stop the fighting, you stop the blockade, and then you can talk about political solutions. But the immediate thing is to feed the Yemenis, treat their illnesses with cholera and everything else going on there. So I don't have any confidence in the United Nations and its roadmap.
Griffiths fell short of telling the Security Council how the Saudi-led coalition was to blame for creating what is now considered as the worst humanitarian crisis in the country. This was specifically significant when considering that the coalition had 1 day prior to the Security Council meeting warned that it was ready to inflict a painful strike on the Yemenis. He did cite a rise in the number of missile attacks by the Yemenis against Saudi Arabia. However, he appears to have overlooked the fact that the Yemenis are responding to a multi-year Saudi-led brutal campaign that has left thousands killed and devastated the country.
Well, I see it as totally out of touch with reality. The Saudis, the first thing they should do is, 1, stop bombing Yemen, and 2, start contributing substantial sums of money to rebuild the health of the economy and to rebuild the food supply, and to stop blocking necessary imports of medicine, drugs, all kinds of food that the Yemenis desperately need.
The United Nations has already warned that the Saudi-led war has put the lives of 75% of Yemen's population at risk of epidemic diseases. It has also warned that at least 7 million are at risk of famine in the country. Also, the International Committee of the Red Cross says that a severe cholera outbreak has killed 2,000 people and already infected 1 million. Many believe that the scale of calamity in the country is simply too huge to be fixed through a new plan for negotiations, as envisaged by the new UN envoy. Besides, one cannot expect any concrete move to be taken to end the violence in Yemen unless those responsible for the plight of the Yemenis are properly held accountable.
Talking and giving little bits of money are of no help to the Yemenis whatsoever. I think this is outrageous. Especially since Donald J. Trump, President of the United States, is trying to get the Saudis to contribute money and soldiers to the ongoing war in Syria. So we need to deal with reality, not with Saudi fantasy.
All the current signs show the Saudi-led coalition has failed to attain the objectives of the war that it has waged on Yemen since the year 2015. Surprisingly, and to the chagrin of the international community, it is still persisting on continuing the deadly war. In the meantime, there is little hope that efforts by institutions like the United Nations would lead to a cessation of hostility in Yemen. This specifically as long as the UN fails to directly take note of the crimes that the Saudis and their allies are committing in the country.